This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello, this is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where you wonder, do you have a plan for this show? I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and don't worry, you guys, I have concepts of a plan for this show. Today, we'll definitely talk about the debate tip, all debates. We'll talk about the idea of paying your kids to read books, and finally, would you pay to attend a wedding? Today, oh, folks, this panel, come on, get out of here with this panel. We are joined, she's been on the show before. We love her on the show before and into the future. She is an on-air host and journalist, kind of everywhere. You've heard her and seen her. You can see all of her work at itsalexberg.com, titled thusly because her name is, in fact, Alex Berg. Hey, Alex.
Oh, hello. I'm happy to be here. I have concepts of things I'd like to say today.
Oh, great. Guys, we're going to fucking nail it with our vague thoughts on this show, on the debate. We are also joined by one of my fellow Wait, Don't Tell Me panelists. I love it when I get to be on a show with him. I believe he was, in fact, on the very first show I ever did. He performs all around the country, and it's like an experience that you should have is to see him live, and you can figure out where all of his performances are by following on Instagram at ATP Burke, and he is the wonderful Adam Burke. Hey, Adam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here on this momentous day after debate. I want to start before we get into it, I just want to let people know that they can go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show. Thanks so much to everyone who's been doing that. You can also get your t-shirts. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind because I'm Kamala Harris in the first 5 minutes of the debate right now. You can get your t-shirts at neginfarsad.com. We are selling, we're only doing optimism t-shirts. Thanks so much to everyone who came out to the shows I did in Florida and Atlanta this weekend. A lot of Fake the Nation fans, and it was so great to see you guys. And again, we're only doing optimism crop tops outselling the regular tops. So I don't know what that means about you as a group of listeners. But maybe you're just all ripped and you got a lot of fucking midriff to show for it. You know what I mean? All right, let us get in. Oh,
that's perfect. So I just wanted to say an optimism crop top is perfect because I see the shirt as being half full.
That's right, and that's why they're outpacing the other variety. All right, folks, let's get into it with topic number one. Okay, so last night was the first and maybe only presidential debate between Kamala Harris and sensitive dirtbag former President Donald Trump. Now, I gotta be honest, during the first 5 minutes, Kamala seemed nervous, and I was personally gently shitting my pants. So let's first talk about those first beats. How did they just come off at the start? Adam, what did you think?
That's interesting that you say that you're worried about. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned that, but yeah, I was a little worried that she was going to get very stumpy with it in terms of just sort of redoing the DNC, playing the hits. And it was disappointing because she did this a couple of times where she made the point that she was going to answer the question, which only highlighted the fact that she did not then answer the question. But yeah, she completely dodged the first one. But then she seemed to get, as soon as she saw what a shit show he was going to be, she seemed to get a little gravel under her feet and was able to kind of dig in a little bit.
And not only when she sensed that he was going to be a shit show, when she made him into a shit show, when she baited him into shit showosity, I feel is kind of what we saw. Alex, what were your first initial thoughts?
I was right there with you. The first couple of minutes were kind of nerve-wracking because I feel like there was so much pressure and attention and build-up to this debate. And one of the things I generally had a hard time wrapping my mind around is the incongruence between these two people, right? Like, we have Trump, who incited a white nationalist riot, who is convicted of election interference, who is an adjudicated sexual assaulter. And then you have Kamala Harris, who is, generally speaking, what we would consider a more normal political candidate. Of course, the vice president has more usual political controversies, I would say, around her. So it was also just this strangeness of seeing these two people treated almost exactly the same way as they walked out on the stage. And then I think there was that moment where it was like, are they going to shake hands? Aren't they going to shake hands? And so we saw her just stride right over to him, say, Kamala Harris, reach out and shake his hand. And I feel like that kind of started to set the table of, after she got through her initial answers and nerves,
Jitters,
that she was going to
yeah.
try to control the jitters, try to control the narrative. And so I think it was a little bit of nerve-wracking. She was finding her footing, but the moment she baited him over debate size, I felt like now she is off and running. This is her game.
Yes, it was a beautiful, I mean, she the line she gave, which was kind of like stunning. She was just like, this might be a little unusual, but I invite you to go to his rallies because people fall asleep, or, you know, and they're tired, they start to leave in our, like, you know, by the end they're exhausted and it's hard to follow. He talks about crazy things. And the interesting thing is, like, what she said then played out for the rest of the evening. Like, he said crazy things. It was hard to follow, to the point where within his answers, I started to get bored because I couldn't track them.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this thing of his rallies, like, losing steam at the end, I was making jokes. I was on tour the last 4 nights. I was in Fort Lauderdale and Tampa, Orlando, and Atlanta, and I made that there was like one little, like, patch of seats that hadn't sold, and I said, like, oh, like, that's where it looks like, you know, hour 4 of a Trump rally, when, you know, there's just like a small patch of seats that haven't sold. And everybody laughed because it's just like, everybody does know that this is a thing that happens, you know, it's been heavily reported on, and it's so fun to see him lose his shit over that. Another fun moment I thought was, like, he really loves to bring up Viktor Orban. Let's talk about,
so weird, right?
huh?
It's so weird.
It's
Such a weird thing to keep going back to.
Yeah, because also, like, in what universe is the president of Hungary, like, a really popular guy in America to bring up? You know what I mean? What voters does that help him with? It's like, I think what it sort of really shows is that these right wing kind of, like, incel man dude, you know, YouTubers and podcasters and stuff like that he listens to, that he's really engaged in, they all know Viktor Orban. But, like, my mom does not know Viktor Orban. So, like, mentioning him is super strange. What do you think, Alex?
He literally used the word strongman. And generally speaking, you don't use strongman as a compliment or an aspirational thing that you want to be as a leader.
Right.
But it really speaks to both, I think, just how out in the open a lot of his fascistic aspirations are, that he really does just want to be an authoritarian ruler if he were to win this election. And then also, I think it speaks to what you said, that he is so deep in this, like, MAGA right-wing, far-right media landscape, where Viktor Orban is somebody that they admire and think is doing good things, which is just such a frightening thought. And it also speaks to, I think, the people who are listening to him and going to walk away feeling like he did a good job. I watched a little bit of some of the Fox News coverage last night just because I was curious about what they would have to say about how he did. And some of their sort of more centrist, if that is even the right description for some of their pundits, felt like he did a bad job and, like, Harris won the debate. But then you can also imagine this world in which, on these far right places like Newsmax and further, they're going to say that he won, and they're going to praise him for bringing up Viktor Orban. And so I think it's just a testament to this whole other reality that the MAGA folks are in when that's the kind of shout out that he gives.
Yeah, well, the other fun thing is I think Lindsey Graham went on Fox News or something and said like that his debate prep team should be fired because he was not prepared for this debate at all. And I thought that was
Be fair to be fair to them, though. Especially when, the point she brought up that he's impossible to work with. And
right.
that they spent 4 days saying, by the way, she's going to bring up your rally sizes. Don't fall for it. And they probably pinned that to his forehead on a piece of paper saying don't fall for it. But you can't prep the unpreppable.
I wonder
You
to
can't.
what extent Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard, who were his debate prep people, are being thrown under their bus right now. You know what I mean? Like, obviously Lindsey Graham did it, but I wonder if he's just like, well, if anybody didn't like it, it's because of those two people, like, led me in the wrong direction. Yeah, there's no way. There are smart people in his team that are probably telling him exactly that. She's gonna mention crowd size. She's gonna mention your relationship with Kim Jong Un. She's gonna say their love letters, like all that stuff. I mean, the interesting thing is like that debate size thing was the moment. I'm using my hands to indicate dick size. That was the moment that really brought him, like, made him unhinged. But before that was the abortion section. Now, I I guess I guess as a lady, you don't realize how much you enjoy hearing a woman talk about like women's rights. But I was like, oh, this is so nice, isn't it? It felt a little luxurious. Like, it felt a little like, oh, are we staying at the Four Seasons with this question? Like, it was just so lovely to hear like Kamala Harris talk about it. And also because she had the requisite pain in her system to be able to say, did these women ask for this? Did these women ask for having a miscarriage in a parking lot? Is that what these women are asking for? And I think like the fact that he brought up executing a baby so quickly into the debate, I don't know, maybe that was like 10-15 minutes in, that to me was the moment where everything shifted, because you can't casually talk about executing babies. It's such an egregious lie. Is there anyone out there that hears executing babies and then is like, wow, is that that's really happening?
So, to be clear, you can't casually talk about executing because my dating coach said that I should stop leading with that on dates. So this is good. This is good advice. I did not know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Adam, no casual baby execution chatter.
I think you bring up a great point, and it's sort of, it exemplifies her centrist bona fides and how well that she was prepped. And it's as someone, I think as comedians, we like a little bit of chaos. So that's why he's always going to be a bit more interesting, that she was so well prepped and she was so well, once she got into it, once she got the ground under her feet, the notion that you make this not about executing babies, you make this about women's health care. You make it about the fundamental right for someone to trust their doctor and be able to get hilarious. And again, she sort of made this point without making it, but it's like, if this is about states' rights, well, surely the people within a state have the right not to have to leave their state to exercise their rights. And I think that's what she made. Like, her ability to say things like, and it was sort of a weird rhetorical device, I thought, that worked really well when she said that someone has to get on a plane with strangers.
Yeah.
And again, she had a way of humanizing this and making it wider than the notion of life or conception or these kind of things. And it's about what do you it was this weird thing of like empathy, and he had to go to such a bizarre place to counter it about, and which was like very deftly fact checked at the end, which, well, I don't know where I was watching. I got a huge, the fact check
Oh,
got a
the
round of
fact check. You
applause.
can't you can't execute babies fact check. Is that one? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Alex, what do you think of that section? Did it work for you?
I thought there were a few points that were really strong. First of all, so I covered access to reproductive health care for a long time. And one of the things that Republicans have been very good at is spreading misinformation about quote unquote late term abortions. There is no such thing as a late term abortion. And I find that sometimes when Democrats get this kind of question, they get really mired in the weeds around arguing over when is too late to allow an abortion, et cetera. So I thought she did a really good job of refusing to engage with that and keeping it focused on bodily autonomy, and not kind of playing into getting lost in the weeds. The other thing I thought she did a great job at is really humanizing the whole issue rather than getting stuck in policy talking points, really bringing up these anecdotes that people really understand. People really understand the fear aspect. People really understand these really human stories about how folks are impacted when they're not able to access an abortion. So I thought it was really good that she stuck with those points. One of the things I was thinking about is, and I did not make up this phrase, but a phrase I have heard is that a lot of times Democrats will bring a PowerPoint presentation to a knife fight. And I thought this was one of those areas where it felt like she was really prepared to actually bring human talking points around reproductive health care that could connect with people and go across, I think, the political aisle to a place of empathy where there are people on the right who, maybe they don't want to say that they are pro-choice, but I think that the kind of empathy and humanizing these kinds of abortion stories is a really effective way to talk about them. And then to the point about fact checking, I mean, I feel like last night, Lindsay Davis, like hats off to her. She was ready to fact check the abortion misinformation that Donald Trump was spreading. And like, what a testament to this moment that she has to clarify that like you can't murder a baby after 9 months. That's just murder or execution. But I thought that she did a really great job, more so than other debates that we've seen. I thought this was the best fact checking. And I feel like the fact checking was probably sufficient or average, but because it has been so epically bad debate after debate, yes, or there just hasn't been any that, at least we got some fact checking at a minimum. And listen, they really had their work set up for them, because I don't even know how you keep up with just the sheer number of lies that Donald Trump was saying last night.
Other funny thing that happened, it was such a weird moment where they were like, JD Vance said that you would not sign a national abortion bill if it came to your desk. And he was like, well, I don't know. We didn't talk about it. So he had this opportunity to say that I would not sign a national abortion bill, a national abortion ban, and then didn't take that opportunity, even though he spent weeks trying to say that he's not going to have a national abortion. It's like, it was the craziest thing. I was like, okay, well, I guess you just said the thing that you will literally sign a national abortion ban, I guess, is what we're supposed to take from this.
The thing that's so bizarre right now is that everyone on the right is angry at him over how he's handled abortion, because we know the majority of Americans, according to Pew data, support access to safe and legal abortions. So he's out of step, period, no matter where he stands in terms of appointing the justices who overturned Roe. But the other thing is that, initially when he was talking about the Florida ban and then kind of like walked back that he would support the ban, et cetera, evangelicals, far right anti-abortion activists got angry at him because they said that he wasn't pro-life enough. So it's been kind of fun to watch him like attempt and fail to thread this needle where he can't keep anyone happy, because he knows this is a losing issue for him no matter what.
No matter what. But though, guys, he did confirm last night that he's a leader on fertilization, which I was like, does that just mean you fathered a lot of children? Do you actually know what that means? So yeah, guys, he's a leader on fertilization. The IVF segment was also hilarious. Let's talk a little bit about the January 6th section. He spent a lot of time being like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that. I'll be the, that was his language. But when it came to a question about January 6th, he was like, I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to give a speech. And so how did that land for you? If you're a random regular voter who was maybe like thought January 6th seemed unpleasant, and would rather something like that not happen again, but you're like not in the weeds the way we are, how did that answer come off to you, Adam?
Well, he's in this weird position now, right? Because he's sort of it's so funny that he's so in so many ways the opposite of her in that she she's sort of kind of um maybe losing some people on the left, and she's kind of like okay with that, where he's trying to keep the fringes while appearing to be moderate, which allows him to say something like, I had nothing to do with that, but also those people didn't do anything wrong, which is crazy
Right.
because why would you distance yourself from something you agree with? And it was I was very surprised. I'm glad they brought up the whisker thing, the I lost by a whisker, because that has enraged um some of his nut his the premier nut jobs in his camp, who are like, well, if you lost by a whisker, what were we doing? So I think it is sort of it was sort of it was interesting to see him flail in real time, where you
Right.
like both of these things can't be true. You can't say that you called for peace and then go, also, I would pardon all of those people who attacked the capital. Which is it? It seems like a really easy choice. I was I was surprised by the Harris camp's um, line about moving forward, and it almost sounded like, let's stop talking about January 6th,
Oh, is that
because
how
I
you
know
read
for
it?
some,
Okay.
well, a little bit, because it seemed to have this thing that was like, this is taking up a lot of air, and this sort of goes against my, if my whole message is, and it's their slogan, forward, then um I this is just taking up a lot of space we could use to talk about other
Well,
things. I
I
don't know,
thought the
that's kind of
best
how I.
line about the election denialism was that Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people, and clearly he's having a very difficult
Yeah.
time processing that. And it was just it's so funny because it was like, it was like condescending in the best way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you can't process it, little baby. Like, your feelings have been hurt. And I get that it's like really hard, but like, yeah, 81 million people fired you. It was just so perfect, but it does, I mean, and she brought it back around to like, it just leads us to believe that he doesn't have the temperament. I thought that was really strong. And then I thought the moment that felt like sort of apex great point was he kept saying she is Joe, and he also did a bunch of digs at Joe, which is just, I think he can't. My feeling is, and this is as a comedian, when you have a bit, but like the time on the bit has passed because it's sort of like time bound. It's about something that's happening in the news, but you can't. You're like, I think I could squeeze out another couple of months because people remember this news story. Adam, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, deeply.
Yes.
I'm ashamed how much you're talking about.
So like the idea of like, oh, call Joe Biden at 4 p.m., wake him up. Like, I know that that's like a bit he doesn't want to let go of, but he is not running against Joe Biden, right? So it's like he used the bit, but he's like, but it's not useful in any way, which really enabled her to say, like, look, I'm not Donald Trump and I'm not Joe Biden. I am a new generation of leadership, which is the best way of saying, like, look, everybody's really fucking old and we're done with it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was just, do you feel like, Alex, that she differentiated herself enough from Biden, or did you feel like she needed to? I mean, where do you think she landed on that?
I think that she was very on message about, we need to move forward and leave everything behind. And I mean, I think that, she said it about as clearly as you could, that she's not Biden or Trump, and reminding Trump that he's not actually running against Biden either. I think what she must be responding to is the feeling that there are independents or undecided voters who just want to leave it all behind. And that's where that distinction is important. And that's why I almost think maybe she didn't dig in deeper on January 6th, because she is really just trying to move forward and turn the new page and really kind of untether herself from both Biden and Trump. So that was kind of my best guess, is that, the only people, I was also listening to some interviews with undecided voters, and it's difficult for me to wrap my head around how you could watch this debate, or having lived through the past 8 years, and still be an undecided voter. But what I was hearing from those people is that they just want a change. They just want something new and fresh. So my thinking was probably that's where that came from strategically, from her perspective. Just something new, untethered from both of these candidates.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that I did not like that she did it at the beginning because I didn't quite understand what she was doing is that she started to delineate herself against Trump. A lot of the early messaging in the debate was, "I'm not this guy. I'm not Trump." And then as it went on, I realized, oh, you are trying to talk about your plan and contrast it with Trump because you're trying not to talk about the legacy, the Biden legacy. You're trying to like not say like we did this and we did that. You want to be more like we are going to do this and we're going to do that, and then have it all very forward facing, and not really. I don't think a lot of times she talked about the accomplishments of the Biden era in a joint way, because again, to exactly what you guys are talking about. So in order to do that, rather than sort of not bring up Biden at all or not mention his name, she had to contrast it to Trump. Does that make sense? Like rather than sort of like
Right. It was
put
a way
herself
of
in the
not
Biden
having to
camp.
like respond to the Biden legacy and the Biden
Right.
question.
One thing it also made me think of is
Yeah.
each of her answers is such a contained 2-minute on message answer. It made me think about how people actually experience the debate in the media landscape. Of course, I'm going to watch the debate because this is something that I do for a living. So I'm going to sit and watch everything and understand the context of every question and the back and forth over everything. But something that I think, we have to talk about is that a lot of people are going to experience this debate through clips. So it almost felt like there was a fine tuning in her answer to make sure every time she spoke, she was delivering like that same exact message over and over again, about moving forward and leaving the past behind. And I kept thinking like, okay, this is going to get clipped into a 2-minute clip. It's going to end up on TikTok. It's going to go wild. It's going to have this whole afterlife. So I was thinking about, it's almost like each one of these answers is its own, mini stump speech in a way where somebody could just see the whole clip and get all of her messaging.
Let's take a quick break.
Is that why she was doing so many? She was doing so many meme faces. That's why she was doing so
many.
Oh,
I want to talk about that. Wait, save that point because I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2, which is really a continuation of topic number 1, because we just have too much to say. But I wanted to talk about Kamala's face, because a lot of my friends had actually just listened to the debate while they were like doing dishes or whatever. And I like urge everyone who just heard the debate to go back and look at some video. You can look at it without the sound on and literally look at her face acting. Because now I've worked with an acting coach. They spend a lot of time talking to you about acting when you're not talking. What is your fucking face doing? And I feel like, did she go to Kimball's studio? Shout out, everyone should do that. But like, she was like, she would have made my acting coach so proud. The faces, it was so evocative. Like she made so many statements with just her face. That I just thought that part of it was brilliant, because we are looking at you when you're not talking, and one of the faces that I think, was immediately clipped and making the rounds was just the face of like, oh, like you're a toddler and I have to pretend like you're making a point, like the face you make at a child. And so tell us what you were thinking about her face, Adam.
Well, I was calling it Granddad's office meds face. It was a bit like it was just a bit like, okay, and just like one eye on the clock. Well, I've done my time. I can go home. It was very just a very condescending ever so slight crease of the eyebrows.
Yes.
Like, oh, bless.
It was a little bit like, let him do his racist diatribe and then we'll cut the turkey. You know what I mean? It was just like, let's just get through it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Kamala, and then by contrast, Kamala was, had this like vibrant face, and she was paying attention. She seemed so vibrant. What did Trump seem to you? How did his body communicate to you, Alex?
Oh, I mean, he was so sour. And you could just see that the more she baited him, the kind of more the bottom of his face dropped and got kind of sweaty. And I also thought it was so, speaking of his body language, I mean, he was face forward the entire time. It was almost like
Yeah,
she
he
was
didn't look at
talking to him
her.
the entire time. He didn't want to engage with her. I don't even think he said her name one time. He just referred to her as she the entire time. So it was like he did not even want to engage and just looked so freaking pissy and mad the entire time. And I feel like, she gave us this whole range of emotion with her faces where it was kind of like, you felt like, okay, she's right there with you. Okay, grandpa, let's get you home. Call it a day. So yeah, so I thought, and listen, I looked at all the memes, like she did what she needed to do, and he kind of gave his usual sour, angry expression.
I will.
Was so
Oh yeah,
desperate. So I'm sorry, I feel like I keep cutting you
no,
off
it's
again.
okay.
I was just going to say to that point, he was so desperate. I think he knew that he was coming off as such a cranky pants lunatic that she would literally say something. She wouldn't even talk, and then he would go, "I'm talking, I'm speaking," and it was like, I don't think you were even being interrupted. He would he would like interrupt himself.
Right.
Yeah, it was
He
such.
started so many sentences that he would then self-interrupt his own sentences with other unfinished sentences. And so it did become like there would be questions they would answer. He said it's like he did so many own goals. Like he was given so many opportunities to talk about immigration, to talk about I guess immigration, like that's his main thing that everyone thinks he should be talking about, and he just like did it. You know what I mean? Because he just kept being fixated on crowd size or whatever that or like how many votes he got during the 2020 election, and it was remarkable to see like how often he did that to himself. The last thing I wanted to talk about on this was that moments after the debate ended, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala. She had said that there had been some AI about her, like endorsing Trump, and she wanted to set the record straight by a formal announcement of who she's going to be voting for, and that's Kamala Harris, and she signed off as childless cat lady, and it was a photo of her with a cat. It was like also like a gorgeous photo. I'm like, were you in a studio for 3 hours shooting this fucking photo? Anyway, so what did you think, Alex? Is that going to have an impact, this Taylor Swift endorsement?
Yeah, I think Taylor Swift is really able to energize her fans. And her fans can, when they get organized and mobilized, they can be scary effective in working together. So I think that she definitely has the potential to get young folks and her fans to engage in the political process. And I also feel like young people deserve to feel excited and connected to our political process. They deserve to feel engaged. They deserve to feel hopeful. They deserve to feel like there is going to be a world that they can shape if they are politically engaged in this process. So I think that anyone who can meet young folks and politically disengaged people where they are and bring them into the fold, that's a good thing. You don't have to agree with the political candidates 100%, but I think it's an amazing touch point for Taylor Swift to be able to bring new people into the fold, and hopefully she'll be able to leverage her remaining tour dates into getting folks registered and putting her support behind these candidates. And we've already seen, I think it was like Swifties for Harris have already been doing their own organizing. So, hopefully it'll be a way for them to more formally organize. But I just get excited when I see that young folks have a reason to hope and feel connected to our political process.
And I thought it was a light touch too, because if you read her statement, it was sort of like, I did my research. I hope you do yours. This is who I'm voting for. It wasn't like, do the right thing, vote for Kamala. You know what I mean? I thought handled it quite deftly. Last thing, Adam, is I don't know if you saw this, but after the debate, Trump went into the spin zone or whatever. And candidates never do this. It's supposed to be like your surrogates are out there, like talking to journalists and making the case for why you won the debate. Well, he went out there himself, and he was sort of standing there like, oh, is anyone going to talk to me? Like when you're like alone at a party and you're like embarrassed. That's what he looked like. And it was very weird. Adam, I mean, I guess, I don't know if anyone pays attention to who shows up in the fucking spin room, but like, what did you think of that moment?
I think it's sort of I didn't know that he did that. I think it
Yeah.
sort of belies his I think it belies his panic over how not 2016 this is. And I've been talking to people about this, and it's sort of my feeling is that something has happened where in 2016 he was very, very good at getting himself free airtime.
Yes.
He was fantastic at it, and he actually like completely changed the playbook on that. And the media didn't even realize what they were doing until after the election, that they had given this guy thousands upon thousands of hours of free airtime because he would say something crazy, and then they would need to talk about it the next day. What changed, I think, is the Fox News Dominion lawsuit. And what changed
Hmm.
is you'll notice that people are just
Mm.
not having him on in the way that they had him on, and they're not having his surrogates on, and there's no upside to having this person on to say things that you will get sued for and he doesn't have to pay for. And I think that's why like he's had to change a little bit of his rhetoric, and I think that's why he wanders in front of cameras in the hopes that someone will talk to him. But it's I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line of these media companies, and it's like we're not going to get sued for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? To put you,
That's an
and it's
excellent
and I
point.
do.
I actually have like completely forgotten about the power of the Dominion lawsuit and how it's sort of lingering over all of this, and that makes a lot of sense because that was a shit ton of money that they
Yeah.
had to pay. All right, folks, let me know what you thought. I woke up this morning being like, is it a great fucking day to be alive? So that's how I have felt. Audience, let me know. How do you feel? I'm so curious to hear. What do you want to hear more from her? What do you want to hear from him, if anything at all? All right.
Can I say
Sure.
something about the Taylor Swift thing?
Yeah.
I mean, if she's not careful, with these immigrants coming into a country, she might be a catless cat lady. You know what I mean? If she's not,
We didn't even
it
talk
doesn't.
about eating pets.
I,
Fuck. I wrote
oh
down
my
here too,
God.
like eating pets. But at some point I was like, I don't even understand why are we talking? I just completely lost track of how it arrived to people in Ohio or like eating cats or whatever. Anyways, he saw it on TV, guys. He saw it on TV. Therefore, it must be true. All right, let us move on to topic number 3. So we read a piece in the Times from Mirai Saikoff where she admitted to bribing her daughter to read. She said she would get $100 if she read a book over the summer, and the plan worked. And now she's recommending it to other parents. And as a parent, this is not the first time I've heard about this. I know other parents that pay their kids to do all kinds of things. So first, I just wanted to ask both of you, like, about paying your kid to read, and then we'll talk about the other universe of things that you could pay your kid to do. But did this ever happen when you were a kid? Were you ever paid to read?
When I was a kid, I remember in the library they would have these different challenges where if you read a certain number of books, you would get like a sticker and you would work your way
Right.
towards a prize, which I feel like is maybe
Yeah.
a more palatable way where essentially there is kind of a payoff for you if you read a certain number of books. My parents didn't pay me explicitly to read. I did get paid for something else, which was learning how to type, which I can talk about when we move to that portion of the conversation. But I feel like there were other
Okay.
ways of incentivizing reading other than just like straight up throwing cash at kids. Like, at least give them some stickers or something, and like, have one of these reading
Yeah, but
competitions through the library.
this is a 12-year-old. Like, a sticker's gonna work on my daughter who's 5, but like a 12-year-old, you know what I mean? I don't know, Adam, what did you think when you first heard about this?
So I would my thought is like if you're paying, because normally you pay kids to do their chores, right?
Right.
That's like,
Or
but
something.
yeah, and then to me in my mind that's sending the message of reading is now a chore. What my mom did
Yeah.
was gave us, if we showed any interest in anything, she bought us a book about it. And she also just gave us stuff that we liked reading. So comic books, she would buy hundreds and hundreds of comic books. When me and my brother talk about this a lot, we would come into school and we would use really weird vocabulary words like that were older than us because we read a lot of Marvel comic books. And our teachers were like, where the hell did you get that word from? You know, like when you're 7 years old, why are you saying annihilate? Um, although I'd only ever seen it written down, so I used to call it annihilate. But anyway, and then I read this interview with Stan Lee recently where he said he intentionally put in $10 words in the comic books
Huh.
because he just thought that was fun for kids. He thought that was kind of fun for kids who would like read a word, I don't know what that is, and they'd have to go look it up. And it's like I just think there's so many ways to incentivize reading that don't involve money. And I think everything we do, like we're already capitalizing, we're already using children's upbringing as a form of capitalism. We're already turning them into TikTok stars. We're already showing them that their worth is like how many followers they have, how many likes they have. Like, are you like? Why would you now capitalize reading, which is the one thing that you have that's a complete escape from anything? It's the one thing in the world that's free. Libraries are free. There are literally there are people put out books on the thing, and the one thing that you can do, and also it doesn't have to be books. Kids probably read more than we read when we were young. I think this notion that literacy lives in books is a silly one, and it's one that we
Oh,
were.
so you're counting what? Like reading a caption as reading?
I mean, they'll read articles. They'll read full articles. They'll get their information from wherever they are. I think, but I think if you're saying that literacy is books, I don't know how helpful that is.
So so there is this other side of the argument, and the article points out that basically 30% of 13-year-olds said they never or hardly read for fun, or they never or hardly ever read for fun, which is a substantial increase from 8% 35 years ago. So the idea of reading for fun, that it should be a pleasure activity, we should learn to cultivate that, has definitely declined statistically. And so I guess one of the questions, so I wonder from your perspective, Adam, is that maybe that's just not a problem? And I say this as someone who reads a shit ton of articles, but doesn't necessarily like sink my teeth into as many books a year as I wish I could, you know? Adam, do you think reading that at that level isn't like important?
Well, I think the problem is the only problem I have with what they're reading is that they're reading the comments. Like that's the one thing that they are. But again, if you think about how many comments like a kid reads, again, if you go by
word
sheer
count,
number of words,
yeah,
they're probably reading more than we are.
Right. But are they reading quality? Like, are they reading something that, like, are they reading the word annihilate and learning what that is?
But then that's where it gets sticky too, because isn't a lot adults telling kids what quality is the quickest way to turn off a kid from reading. If I never had anyone, my mom never, my mom's an incredibly well-read person, working class person, but she never pulled anything out of my hand and said you shouldn't be reading that, like never, no matter what it was. And that led me when I was older, when I walked into her library and saw that she had everything, I knew that I could read anything in there. It's the one thing that was never prescribed.
Well, and I thought what was inspiring about this story, again, because I think when you're like, look, when you're looking at a fucking child's face and you're like, fucking do the right thing, god damn it, like, it's so hard. You will go through great lengths, you'll do some ridiculous things to kind of get them to do what you think is right. And so I understand this, like paying a kid to read, and the story itself, I mean, I thought she kind of handled it well, which is like, okay, I've tried all these other tactics, you're not biting, what if I pay you? And then she figured out what is the book that's really going to draw her into reading. She read the first book, got the $100, and then read the rest of the series of those books, whatever that was. It's just like some popular YA series. And it seemed like maybe this will stick. It wasn't like she was reading Dostoevsky. That was not the forced reading. It was like a fun thing to read. Yeah. She got her to read. And I mean, so to me that seemed okay, because I think part of the problem too with modern parenting, which you didn't have with your mom, is that you're fighting against phones. And so the tendency to just like take refuge in your phone with all of its parental controls and all that stuff notwithstanding, I mean, even with all of that stuff, the phone is such a fucking draw. So I don't know, Alex, when you were paid to learn how to type, which is such a weird thing.
It's
your parents
I mean, it
did.
is so weird. My parents were like, we think that typing is an important skill. And so, you know how there's like Mario Kart and all like the Mario video games? There was also a game called Mario Teaches Typing. And my parents would like pay me $5 an hour to type in this Mario Teaches Typing game. Which also, listen, I had older parents. I'm an only child. I just think they were also like, we're freaking tired already. Like, you know, go amuse yourself on this computer. But also my parents actually, when I was in high school, I loved fashion and I loved celebrity gossip. And so my parents got me a subscription to W Magazine so that I could read the magazine cover to cover and also like have even a better sense of style and fashion and art. And then also they bought me People magazine in Espanol because they were like, if you want to read celebrity gossip, at least you can practice your Spanish skills. So I feel like that was very, yeah, it was like very, they were like, okay, we'll meet you where you're at, but try to like help you grow a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think even as an adult, it is really hard for me to not feel that draw of my phone. So, you know, I can't even imagine for parents, like it's even just hard as an adult who enjoys reading to carve out the time to read. So I feel like parents have a really, unless you have a kid who just innately loves books, this is a tough one.
All right, folks, let me know what kind of parenting tricks have you unearthed to get your kid to read and or do like literally any of the things that you're asking them to do on a daily basis. Let me know because I need to know. All right. That is the end of the show. Oh my God. What fun it is to talk to you both. I want for the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Adam, where do they do that?
ATP Burke on Instagram and TikTok, please.
And I believe that we'll both be taping Wait, Don't Tell Me this week. Right.
Yes,
and that you can catch
an
episode with the two of us over the weekend. And Adam is like one of the Wait greats. So I love being able to perform with him and just hearing his jokes. Alex, where do they find you?
You can find me, it's Alex Berg, on all social media, and it's alexberg.com to see my work. And I'm very excited to tune in and listen to you both on Wait.
Folks, definitely follow Alex. Like you can tell from this conversation how astute and insightful she is. Guess what? She's always like that. Fun, astute, and insightful. So thank you so much for doing the show. And folks, you know where to find me and everything that I do. I'm going to be doing a show in Reading, Pennsylvania in October. So I'll have more details about that. But we're doing some swing state comedy, like a little energizing get out the vote situation. So stay tuned for you Pennsylvanians, because I'm here to help encourage you to get to the polls. And also, like I said, I'm going to be in Wait this weekend. And there's other dates coming up. So, you know, stay tuned. Don't forget to go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show, or go to NeginFarsad.com to get your t-shirts. And the other thing is, like, look, we all know that the podcasting industry is just like a crazy, chaotic monster, and so all of these measures really help keep the lights on here at Fake the Nation. So thank you so much for everyone who has supported the show thus far. Tell your friends. That's the best way to help support the show. So I want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire, everyone at HeadGum who makes the show happen. Thanks to Gaby for our theme music. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.